Evening. We're going to call to order the meeting, the Plan Commission meeting of August 8th, 2025. We'll start with the pledge, please. United States. To the republic which stands one nation under God. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Brightcloth,
Here.
Commissioner Blaylock,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Bard,
Here.
Commissioner Greditor, Commissioner Romanelli, and Commissioner Rothbard.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So the first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the July 10th, 2025 meeting. And I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Any changes or comments about the minutes? I don't see that, so you can just do all in favor. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, they are approved. Thank you very much. All right, any visitors wishing to address the Plan Commission for matters other than the hearing that we're going to reopen? I don't see any other visitors. So moving on to new business.
It's actually all business.
I was just going to say, it's probably old business. It's a continuation of the public hearing to consider a request from Orphans of the Storm to adopt a text amendment to list an animal shelter as a special use in the R1 district and to grant the special use per revised section 94B-2 of the village code. Perhaps we can start by talking about what is new since our last meeting. Director Witt.
Thank you, Chair. I know that the applicant has submitted revised drawings of which you all received a packet. I do understand they want to make a presentation of those drawings to highlight what the changes were from the last time we've seen it. So at this point, I just turn it over to the applicant and let them run through that.
Would you please identify yourself and speak into the mic?
Architects. Thus, part of the design build. Yes.
Hard to hear. I can't hear. I don't think it's him. Can hardly hear anything.
Hello? Okay.
There you go.
You got it? Okay.
JUST, just like it sounds. Ken.
Yeah, so I just want to highlight the changes we made from the last meeting. The presentation, I kind of just updated it with the revised plans. And that's kind of what the packet you have in front of you. I'll kind of run through the items and then I'll flip through and kind of show you where these changes have taken place. So item number one was a photometrics plan, site photometrics showing foot candle light levels throughout the site. So that was provided. The chosen synthetic turf is the canine grass. In the last presentation, there were kind of two options. This one is the canine grass. We did make a revision to the exterior dog yards, and that was done just for better organization and also reducing our impervious area. We did revise our calculation for the limits of disturbance and also impervious area for a number of changes to the plans. And then also there was an on-site meeting with our arborist and the village staff to kind of review the existing trees, and there's some changes that were made along that route. One of the changes is the rain garden that was in the northeast corner. When they were out there looking at it, they did not want to do the rain garden, and they decided to do more of a ditch because it was less disturbance to that area. In addition to that site visit, there was a revision to the tree preservation plan because when they were out there surveying, they realized some trees had died. The conditions of others were not, per the original report. So some changes were made then. Also, we revised some grading on the west parking lot, revised the fencing layout, removed 2 dog guards in the northeast corner, removed the east patio at the main entry, made some revisions to the ISO dog kennels, extended the lobby a little bit on the west side, which I'll go over. We provided a roof plan showing the RTUs and updated our construction phasing and addressed the existing retaining wall along the main road. Steve, you can go. Steve, are you controlling this? Oh, can you go to the next slide? These are just the existing photos. You could skip over this. Same with the existing site plan. There's no changes made. Here's our proposed site plan. So some of the changes that were made on this plan is that, let's see if the laser pointer works. Up here where we have our 3 dog houses, those have been reconfigured to kind of avoid some existing trees that were there. And then we made the rear yards a little bit smaller, and that was all to kind of reduce the impervious area. The last presentation we had 2 play yards out here. Those have been removed as well.
Chris, can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Can you maybe give us an explanation of what the 3 dog houses actually do?
Yeah, I have a rendering of them. I could talk about it at that time if you like. Okay. Over here, this is the revision to the rain garden. So I will show you on the civil plans. We had a little bit more area originally, and now this is more of a reduced. We like to call it like a ditch. You can go on to the next slide. This is just an overview of the overall site. Next slide. Is updated aerial. This the highlight here shows you the RTUs that were anticipated having for this building. They're all kind of tucked in behind parapet wall structures that are kind of going up and down along the outside wall. Go next slide. Site overlay exhibit, nothing changed here, just the updated plans. Next slide. The 2 big things on the proposed floor plan is we kind of bumped out this corner here. And the reason for that is to get better sight lines along the outside of this building here. That's just going to help the operational aspect for the facility. So that did add a little bit of area to the building, but then we actually took away a little area here. So the net added area was about 100 square feet. So it was kind of add here, subtract here. And then we did kind of revise these isolation yards. We still have the yards. We kind of just redistribute them in a better way with the inside, what's happening on the inside of the building. It's just a little bit better organization. And then over here at the main entry, we used to have this outside patio that was coming off of this multi-purpose room. So that has been eliminated as well. We did that to help save some impervious area that was happening on the site. The next slide, please. These are just updated elevations going along with that. Really nothing's changed, no materials. It's just kind of reflecting what's happening on the plan changes. Next slide. This is the same. This slide has not changed at all. Just showing the isometric of the dog neighborhoods. Go to the next slide. Our fencing exhibit has changed a little bit. So what we do, as I mentioned, we reduced those play yards here in the corner, the northwest corner, so that went away. And then as we revised these, the yards along the back, so the perimeter fence remains in its location, which is a solid PVC. We did kind of, adjust these fences here right around where the dog yards, the dog playhouses are. Or call them dog houses. So that's really all that has changed. No materials changed on the fencing. The overall design is the same. Next slide, please. Here's a construction phasing exhibit. And is there anything you want to touch base on this?
It's important, the first phase, we'll leave the structure intact and we'll build about 2/3 of the existing or of the new building. And then what we'll do is we'll dedicate that, the west parking lot to only construction. So that purple shaded area is going to be our limits of construction during that phase. No public is going to be able to get into there. Construction fence, vision and safety is going to get blocked from the public. In phase 2, we're going to knock down the dog ward, most of the dog wards of the existing building. We're going to leave the cat building if you're familiar with that. We're going to leave that, and part of that is because in phase 1 we built all the dog holding, and so we're able to move them in, pull that down, and then build that second, basically the balance of the building. And then in phase 3, we'll take down the cat, the old cat room, and then build out that parking lot there.
Okay, next slide, please. Here's the updated site development plan. So you can see the highlighted areas. So we removed this turf area located in the northwest corner. Our synthetic grass along by the dog houses have been reduced as well. The area that I mentioned by the patio has been taken out. And we did adjust our limits of disturbance. This was done in correlation to these changes we made, and then it had to kind of adjust back here with the rain garden. And then the construction phasing plan has also been updated to kind of show the limits, following this dashed line going around the site. The big highlights are that our net impervious area is still at 0.5 acres. So we're still under the threshold to meet that. And if there is discussion on this existing retaining wall, and then since the last meeting, we received feedback from Mr. Witt that the existing retaining wall is going to remain as is. That was per direction from the village. And I believe he could share more information on that when we get to that topic. Next slide, please. Here's our tree preservation plan. So this has been updated based on the on-site meeting. We did add some calculations that were requested, and that's provided in your packet of the critical root zone. The one thing that's kind of open right now is that the time it takes to tag the trees and survey them and get them documented takes several weeks. And when that on-site meeting happened, like 2 weeks ago, there was the changes to the ditch area, or the wetlands converted over to the ditch has been picked up. And then since then, the arborist has surveyed those trees and tagged them. The surveyor has just gone out and marked those trees, and then they've been cataloged. So we're a little behind on that, and that's just because of the time it takes for all these different parties to get together. The consensus is that of the 60 or so trees that were surveyed, there was really nothing really high quality overall that's going to have a major impact. So we're kind of working through that. The great thing is Steve Gregory is here, the landscape architect, who can provide any more details that you want regarding that. Next slide, please. Here's a landscape plan. One thing that we were talking about in the last meeting, there's a group of trees that are right here that we're trying to save. So during the on-site meeting, they looked at those trees that were tagged and where the new curb would be. And there was a little concern about the grading that was happening. They thought the grading that was originally proposed was a little, was going to kind of undercut the root structure of those trees. So there was kind of two proposals that were out there. Was we can go to a 2-to-1 slope, which is sometimes not preferred by the engineers. And we could also do a boulder retaining wall. And so we modified the grading in that area. And then if the village prefers, the village engineer prefers, we could do that boulder retaining wall. It sounded like at the site meeting, it was a great option. Everyone kind of agreed. The only difference was the village engineer was not present, so he couldn't, give the final say. But it's something we are working through, and it sounds like all parties have a solution. Next plan, please. Here's a site photometric plan. It's obviously very hard to read because of the numbers, but basically areas that are gray just kind of shows out there's just a 0-0 rating. And then if you do look on the PDF and you kind of zoom in, you'll see that we are at we're either at 0.0 or 0.1 threshold at these property lines. These are the light fixtures that were selected. I provided some cut sheets. This is kind of just your typical parking fixture. It's an LED fixture, has very sharp cutoffs. Same with this wall pack that's here. The light source is inside the fixture, so it shines straight down. And these are some recessed cans that are kind of used at the front canopy. So this has been submitted to the village for the review. Next slide, please. And here's some updated renderings. This one, there's really not much you'll see. I mean, this does show the yard that's removed here. We did keep the front wall just because it says the name, it's just a nice decorative wall, but there's no longer an outside patio here. Next slide, please. Here's a close-up of that. You can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. There's been no changes on this particular view on this side of the building. That's all been the same. Next slide. Here's a view looking down from above, just kind of showing those RTUs. This also kind of highlights the dog houses, which I do have another view that we can talk about. Well, I could talk about it now. So the purpose of these dog houses is that it kind of gives certain animals that have emotional needs, that could be put in these houses by themselves. They have their own relief yard in the back, and it kind of creates some nice separation. And so they're kind of set up like what we would imagine in our backyard is like a kid's playhouse. So they're kind of meant to look like a small house. There's a front door on them, some windows, and so that's kind of how it's set up with these. We did provide a fence kind of along the front of it to kind of give it this idea of a fenced yard. So that's kind of the changes we made. As I mentioned too, we kind of respaced them to avoid the existing trees. You don't see the existing trees here. It's just the way the rendering program operates, but it is reflected in the plans. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a close-up of the dog neighborhoods on the back. Nothing has changed on this particular view. Next slide, please. This is the patio that is within the large dog yard. Next slide, please. So here's a view inside this large yard here. You'll kind of see these 3 dog houses in the back. And so this area used to be artificial turf that has been moved to grass. That's just to help with our calculations on impervious area. Next slide, please. Next slide. Nothing's changed back here. This is just showing that solid fence that kind of wraps around the north side of the property. Yeah, this is probably more like woodlands, where we're standing, like, 'cause we're kind of outside the area of construction. The rendering program just kind of, the default is like grass. This is kind of how it does it. So it's kind of taken where this red dot's at is where this particular view is. So it's kind of outside of our limits of disturbance. We're kind of just looking at the west corner of the property or the building. It'll probably be trees. You'll probably be existing trees is what you're going to be standing in.
But what's the ground cover?
Natural.
That's what I'm trying to get at. It's current conditions, whatever that is.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I think right now it's a mix of natural. There's some mulch back there. There's, a little bit of everything. That may be the last slide. Okay, but we're happy to answer any questions you have. I know we kind of covered a lot.
Do you want to provide an overview?
Yeah. Steve, Director Witt, could you make some comments on staff's reactions to these changes and any of the other open items from last meeting?
Certainly. I think overall, a lot of the things that they're doing are positive in nature, particularly the reduction of the dog yards in the northwest corner. Some of the areas where they've tried to reduce the amount of impervious surface, which I want to get to very shortly. The one area of concern that I do have in looking at the plan was the dog holding area on the south side, that we've increased the number of caged areas from 8 to 11. So there will be some additional dogs there that could create noise, though we do have a solid fence there and we do have the berm in itself. It's just a matter that the outdoor exposure of dogs has increased in that area, and I think we should take note of that. But again, the reduction of the dog yards in the northwest corner, again, was perceived as positive. The extension of the lobby on the west end, if you could maybe point to that, Chris. I think that that's another positive piece, in though they're looking at it from an operational perspective. I see that it still is more building structure to block some of the noise going toward the south. So for what little extra that is, I think that will help something. The rest of the changes, are fairly minor. I think from a staff perspective, the one thing that I would like to hit, in fact, if we can maybe defer for a second, since we're covering this in a lot of generalities, there was a memo that I sent out yesterday. We did receive I want to make sure I get this into the record. We had a concern over the resident at 2240 Riverwoods Road. Maybe I can just read this into the record for the moment. It is directed to Lori Brightcoff, Chair of Riverwoods Plan Commission, regarding orphans of the storm expansion plan. After participating in the public hearing of the expansion plan of orphans of the storm on July 20th, as the immediate residential neighbor, I would like to receive action plans for the following issues from the Village Plan Commission. First, since covered area would be expanded, I would like to know how the runoff water to prevent flood situation. Southeast corner of our property is designated as wetland. Increased runoff water volume may exacerbate the flood stagnant water situation. And I would want to cover each of these items, but I just want to get through the letter first. Second, currently we do not experience any significant noise level, largely due to noise abatement by the trees. Any significant degree of reduction of tree population will increase noise level, especially in winter season. Measure to dampen the noise level in the winter season when trees are bare without leaves need to be taken. 3, clear signages to direct the increased volume of traffic to prevent frequent wayward visitors. And 4, location of disposal bins needs to be away from our residents. are we looking forward from the Plan Commission? Thank you, Bayung Mu So, resident of 2240 Riverwoods Road. So in response, in the memo that I sent, I look at in my review, as well as working with Jim Baxa, who is here from Gewalt Hamilton tonight, and he can chime in where I'm going astray, is that for item 1, the direction of the surface water runoff really doesn't change with what Orphans is proposing to do. That direction of flow is generally east to west, maybe, going a little toward the southwest, depending on where you're standing on the property. The other piece is that the amount of water, surface water that's going in that direction is dramatically reduced by the water in the west parking lot being collected by 2 catch basins, as well as another basin. And maybe we could flip to the engineering plan if you can direct us to that particular plan.
Yeah, next slide. Next.
Keep going.
Probably next one. No, I think it may have been that last slide.
Let's try one more. If not, we'll go back to this.
It was, yeah, it would probably be the site development plan.
Well, let's just work with this one. So there's 2 catch basins. There's one basin roughly here. There's another one here. There's one that's put toward the front of the building, and then there's one in front of the berm, which is extended across here, the berm extension that they're putting in. There's a basin that's over here, is going to collect all of that water in this area and take it to a storm outlet or a storm structure at this point, and that will then feed into the line on Riverwoods Road. Then with respect to the issue of wetlands on that property, our records don't indicate that there are any delineated wetlands on the 2240 property. There are 2 locations on the Orphans property, but those are within the woodland areas to the north, and nothing there is going to be disturbed. As far as the second one goes, with regard to noise, it should be acknowledged that the Orphans project does incorporate insulated overhead doors and solid fencing to help minimize noise going in the direction of the neighbor. Plus the fact that the 2 outdoor dog runs have been eliminated, which I think is very positive in reducing noise heading in that direction. And we also do have trees that are going to be replanted. Sorry about that. Replanted along this edge of the parking lot once that work is redone. So I believe that that particular concern should be well addressed. For item number 3, it would be our recommendation that a ground sign be installed at the entry to the west parking lot. Currently, the drawings only show one at the east. We understand that's the main entry, but for the concern if this resident has had enough people moving up their driveway thinking they're going to the orphan site, I don't think it's unreasonable to request the sign be mounted, a ground sign mounted near that entry. And then the location of the refuse dumpster was a concern by the resident. We should note that the dumpster location is roughly 290 feet from their house, and I think that that's substantially distant from the residence. Another comment with regard to the
Steve, can I
elimination-
just back up a second? Is the
Sure.
dumpster enclosed though? It's not just a dumpster. It isn't an enclosed.
It's an enclosure with dumpsters inside of it,
Okay.
as far as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
Chris.
correct. It's an enclosure.
All right.
And
The enclosure's there to maintain things from blowing around and from a visual perspective.
So it's 4
with dumpsters
walls and
inside.
it has a cover, or 4 walls, no cover?
It has 3 walls, and the south wall has gates in order to open. So the rental dumpsters
Sure,
would then can be taken out and emptied, and
sure. No cover though, right?
no cover.
Okay.
The height of them was submitted on the architecture site plan. I could tell you the height.
Well, you could see, the height, but you could see the enclosures here with the gates.
The swing
faced.
gates open out and then the 3 walls behind it, but no cover, just to be clear.
Yeah, and the height of the wall is 7 feet. So it's about as tall as the door behind you in terms of the height. Masonry is the material for the enclosure. And
So
that's
so in
the south
essence,
wall, 2 swing doors.
right. So in essence, the solid doors, even with the gates open during, removal or pickup times or putting the trash out, those dumpsters are blocked from view from that particular resident. The only time you would see it would be if you're driving by on Riverwoods Road. So I think it's properly located to, be conscious of the neighborhood. And as far as the illumination level, I'm glad to see that drawing come through. I'll have to say that in my review, there were very few locations, 3 of maybe 4 locations where the illumination level got slightly over 1 foot candle, which is what we would want to see for a limit around this building. The majority of all the lighting is under the 1 foot candle at the perimeter of this building. So I think that based on what we see for the catalog cuts as well as the photometric plan, that they should be considered to be in compliance if that all holds true at the final design. But we do want to look at a couple of questions that we still have with regard to the impervious surface areas. And maybe at this point, I can just turn it over to Jim Baxa from UAlt Hamilton to cover those items, and I'll jump in where needed.
So starting with the impervious coverage, they made the reductions down to 0.5 acres, just to stay within the threshold of stormwater detention. One thing that we have a concern about that is you're right at that threshold. Excuse me. And during construction, a lot of times what could potentially happen is changes are made in the field just to accommodate something that you might not foresee based on the engineering drawings itself. When those occur, that adds impervious coverage, and and we're talking about walkways, pads for the dogs, and things like that. And that's going to push you potentially over the 0.5 and then trigger detention. We don't want you to get there. So one thing Steve and I were talking about is trying to give yourself a little buffer and trying to bring down some of the impervious surface. So in case you do encounter any type of changes in the field that accommodate and it's better for the accommodations, you're still within that limit of 0.5. And then we're not chasing at the end of the project saying, now you've triggered stormwater detention. So that's something we'd like to see you take in consideration. The second part that Steve and I looked at as well is area of disturbance. You're right at that threshold of 3.0.
2.8.
2.8.
We brought it down by decreasing the north disturbed area and reducing those yards.
Okay. That is not reflected in that chart that I am viewing, so that's something we have to look at. But just please keep in mind that once that is laid out for the project, we would like to see those limits of the construction fence that's being represented by the 2.8 acres of disturbance laid out. So when the fence is installed post-driven, that there's no potential manipulation movement during the process of construction just for moving materials and things like that. Because again, as you know, once you go over the 3.0, it's a different story for your client.
Also, when you look at the construction fence, even as you see it here, we've talked before with regard particularly to the west parking lot, that west edge. Now you're looking at something like a 2-to-1 slope, and that's going to kick out, according to your drawing, about a good 12.5 feet, which puts that like maybe at that fence line and maybe even west of it. And you still need additional space to be able to maneuver to install that new material. Everything that you walk on is part of the disturbed area and it's got to be considered in there. So at this point in time, though you're at a 2.8, our concern is that I think by the time this project is finalized and you tweak everything, you're likely hovering right at 3.0. And we don't want to see having to come back after everything is surveyed at the end of the project and find out that the numbers don't stay within your limits for not having to have detention. because at that point, it's relatively too late to do anything with it. Then we're looking at doing some disturbance of the woodland areas or something else in order to get detention. So we want to take a very close look at that. But we need better refined drawings in order to accomplish that. So part of the condition, if this commission were to make a recommendation for approval on this, so we would like to see a provision to work with the applicant to reduce those numbers to a level that staff is acceptable with in order to move it forward into construction document phase.
In the design that we have created, we are conservatively at 2.8. We understand the tolerances of construction, what happens during construction. So we believe we're less than 2.8, but for the design of preliminary, we're conservatively at 2.8. Once we get into the fine details of the design of this, we're going to retract as much as we can toward the infrastructure that is required for this. And that is the intent here, that we are very cognizant of the 3.0, and 2.0 isn't 2.8 is not a lot of leeway, but we're confident we'll be below that.
And it's not a lot of leeway. And part of the concern too is that, this limit of the 3 survives the life of the building. So anything that Orphans decides to do down the road is going to be severely impacted by whatever you leave left over here. Putting it at 3.0 gives them absolutely nothing they can do for hard surface down the road. I just want to have that as a consideration.
Understood.
And then, Jim, did you want to cover our previous discussion on the waste removal?
So I was looking at the canine grass material that you're using for the exterior for the dog runs, or for the restrooms for the dogs and the cats. And the question we were having is, we looked at the cross section and the product manual for interior use of this product. And the product, once it's done, when the animals are done doing their business, everything's rinsed down into the drain, and it seems like it appears that goes into the sanitary sewer system. That is an indoor application. We're curious, exterior, how it's being maintained once the product is washed after the animals are out there. What's the drainage for this, and where is the wastewater going?
If you want to scroll to the, let's see which plan. It's called. Let me see.
While he's looking for that, that's supported with these impervious pavers? That's supported with these impervious pavers that run, the dog runs?
This is the canine grass I'm speaking of. Right there, there's a detail up
If you
there.
go to the site development plan,
Yes.
so
Thank you.
the canine grass has a gravel base to it, which is why it can't be located near any existing trees because of the undercutting needed. And then any solid waste is picked up and disposed of inside the building. And the purpose of the turf is that it allows rain and any sort of liquid to pass through it. And which is where the discussion was previously about the village considers it non-pervious product, even though it is pervious. I do have a sample of it here. It looks just like artificial turf that's woven together. There's no solid backing, there's no synthetic solid backing. So it does allow liquids of infiltration through it. And then Michelle can talk about more operations of ongoing maintenance, but this product, the canine grass, is a product we do use outdoors. and indoors,
Mhm.
but indoors is a different animal.
Correct.
But that's not this application. This application is outdoors, which
Chris-
is,
Chris.
the majority of our projects are outdoor applications of synthetic turf.
All right, Chris, two questions.
Yes.
In the outdoor application, is the canine grass placed over a granular fill or is it placed directly on soil?
No, it's a stone aggregate. It's not over soil.
So the question is, how do you get around the definition from the watershed development ordinance, which considers aggregate base as not pervious?
Well, we're not calculating it. It's outside of our calculation. We're not calculating as pervious. We're calculating as impervious, which is the reductions that we made
Okay,
in the last meeting.
just
But I'm
want,
just telling you,
I just want to
we
be,
dump a bucket of water on it.
Yeah.
It's not going to shed like concrete. It's going to soak in. So,
I
but
just
but that's
want to
not
be clear.
that's not the discussion here. We're not counting it towards impervious. I'm just telling you how it acts.
Understood.
From a reality level.
So then maybe can you educate some of us, even though the facility's been here for 100+ years, but, you know, we're looking at new and improved. What happens with the collection of urine outside in each one of these dog runs? And how does that affect the ecology of the site, the aquifers, anything else? Well, what is the
Yeah.
concern with that? Because indoors, in a situation, you'd be collecting all that and putting it to sanitary sewer.
Mhm.
We obviously can't do that outside because then we have rainwater that gets into the sanitary sewer and we can't accomplish that. So how are we protecting the ecology of the site otherwise?
If you go to the existing site plan, which is probably the second slide. Third slide. So those highlighted areas around the building, here, all down here and here, these are existing outdoor kennels as of today. Go to the next slide, please. These highlighted areas here and back here, these are the new outdoor areas. So significantly reduced the amount of dogs. And if you go to the floor plan, the reason for the reduction, it's probably the next slide. 2 slides, 3. It's called proposed floor plan. Yeah. So all those dogs that were outside are now moved to this indoor condition. So the amount of hours in a day where dogs used to be outside are now going to be inside. And so when they go to the bathroom, say twice a day, 3 times a day, most likely would occur indoors because that's where the majority of the animals are being taken. These outdoor runs here, so there's had a reduction. And so the one question is, any solid waste would be picked up. Any liquid waste, like dog urine, we think that is very limited and will be reduced from its present condition because of the overall capacity of where the dogs are right now, they're being moved inside. So you're not having more dogs outside, you're having less.
It's important to note that the turf performs the exact same way as natural grass. And you're gonna pee on grass, it's gonna soak in. The turf, it's gonna soak in. So it's not like one is worse than.
Yeah, and the main benefit of our turf is just durability. As anyone who has animals, they like to dig and claw and do everything else they can when they're outside. So this artificial turf holds up extremely well for animals, and so that's why it's used. It's our go-to product that we use on countless animal care facilities. If we didn't have any limitations to impervious area, we would probably be using more of it. And that's kind of the reduction we had in the past. We just think it's a superior product to grass. Grass typically could get torn up. It could get, it doesn't look that great after it gets torn up. We just think this product looks great.
I have a question about the synthetic grass, if I can ask that. Is it okay if I ask now? Or, yeah.
Yes.
So how much of this is the synthetic grass? How much is actually you're using of that when you look at this?
The amount of area for the synthetic grass?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did have, let's see which plan it shows it on. If you go to the
3,700 square feet.
if you go to the landscape plan, shows so landscape plan is a couple more pages down. There you go.
Okay.
This dark shaded area is where we're using the turf. The amount of area total is 3,700 square feet.
Okay.
So it has been like I mentioned, there was a substantial reduction from the previous proposal, and that's just to get the impervious area numbers to work with some of the changes that were made.
Okay. And a follow-up, I don't know if this has been brought up, but when you think of synthetic grass, there's also, in my mind, health concerns of synthetic grass when it comes to that. So that's why I want to know how much you're using. And then has anyone thought about that? Of what, is it real hot? It can cause a lot of health issues. I don't know if anyone's read up on synthetic grass or what it is, but I wanted to bring that up just to kind of give an idea.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my son plays travel baseball on
Okay.
synthetic grass.
Okay.
A lot of the fields are actually black, which sounds like a terrible idea, but it's black and it's very hot when it's black. Usually the green color is really not overly hot compared to regular grass.
Yeah. Okay.
Over time. No, I mean, it's pretty popular. Football fields use it. High school football field. It's kind of being used more and more.
Okay.
Just because of it's just more durable than tearing up turf and sod and resodding.
This doesn't have to go on sport fields. They throw that black
Right.
plastic stuff down. You see football players laying in it. Smoke comes up and you breathe it in. That is not part of it.
That was my question because, like I said, I've heard a lot of things about synthetic grass and their health concerns on that. So that's why I bring it up. So.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
just a quick follow-up question. So in current operations, is this what you all are using now for outdoor runs?
Can I ask you to speak into the microphone so it's recorded? Thank you.
Right now, in some of the playouts, we have mulch. We have rocks in some areas. Some of it's dirt. Some is grass. We do have one small area where we have artificial turf that's just kind of like a little rectangle area in the middle of a play area so that it doesn't get beat up. So we do have a little bit of it in use right now. But yeah, otherwise, no.
Okay, thank you.
One more quick question. When we're talking about what we are adding to the soil when we clean, I'm assuming that your runs are going to be power washed. And when they're power washed generally with soap or a chemical or something, not just water. The orphans that exist today, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I've been there, was guttered all around the outside of the outdoor runs so that significant portion of what was power washed was carried off to the sewers. I'm not seeing that here. So are we going to make allowance for the fact that when we clean, and you're going to be cleaning every day, and you're going to be out power washing because otherwise you can't get it clean after it's been picked up, but then you've got soapy water mixed with a little urine and it's a delightful mix, that it would be nice to know is being prevented from entering the soil around the kennels. Have you made any allowance for that?
Our drains are sloping in towards the building and not out.
Please speak in the mic.
Ken just, our drains are sloping in towards the building instead of out like the current orphan system. We do not have a gutter because we don't need a gutter because everything is flowing towards the inside.
Yeah, and then the outdoor yards that are not kennels that use the turf, they're not clean like you would a kennel, power washing and soap and water. That's, yeah, so it's really just the amount of kennels that were on the south side. Yeah, and then the inside.
The
yeah.
insides and the outsides of the kennels of the, what are we calling them, neighborhoods? Yes,
Yes,
of
that's
the
correct.
neighborhoods. Thank you.
Director Witt, do you have any further comments on the updates? And then I want to get into some of the existing comments that you had.
I have no additional comments at this time with regard to the presentation that they've given to us.
How about some of the issues that came up last time that haven't been addressed yet, like the wall? Sounds like it's now, there's an understanding.
Let me, maybe I should answer that. There was, I see, I'm looking at the staff review memo from back in July when we talked about the conflict between the future expansion of the bike path and the wall. And really, at everyone's request, I needed to go back and uncover what the history was. I had worked on the easement originally for the bike path easement with Dick Zermer and Ed. And when I uncovered all of our emails and communications, it was very clear that the wall existed when the easement was granted, and that in coming up with the width of the easement, we purposely minimized it to avoid conflict with the wall and recognized that the wall would be able to exist. So I had to kind of eat crow. I took back my statements about the fact that the bike path easement would conflict, with the future expansion. The intent that the parties had at the time was clearly for the wall to have the right to be there, even though we were also going to have a bike path right next to it. Now, as it turns out, we've had discussions with Lake County. Their intent is to have a 3 or 4 foot shared path shoulder on each side of Riverwoods Road. It's just in planning phase, but essentially the idea is that it's a safer place for bicyclists when there's a shared shoulder. If they add a shared shoulder on each side of Riverwoods Road, they're going to come even that much closer to the property here in question. And the amount of space left over for an off-road path will be reduced. So one of the things that we've discussed internally at staff is the long-term planning for the village. We have a bicycle master bike plan. We've talked about having a bike path. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to talk straight into the microphone, but it makes it hard because I can't see everyone on this long table. But the village will have to decide whether the idea of a off-road bike path, meaning, separated at least 10 feet from the paved road. So then you have another, if it was a real bike path, it would be another 8 feet. So we're probably out of room for that. If it's just a walking path, a 5-foot path as pretty much exists today in places, it still needs to be 10 feet from the edge of the expanded roadway. So after talking around the various scenarios and the difficulty with finding room for a 5-foot path, and maybe the inadvisability of and the affordability, because the construction of this new 5-foot path would be a village expense, even though the county would do it for us, we'd have to pay for it. At the same time that the county is creating these shared shoulders, means that we would be sort of doubling down on sort of bike path type conveyancing. And doing so in an area that's a very tricky area. If you go up Riverwoods Road, you can see how that 5-foot path is kind of wedged in there, kind of meanders around. It goes past a number of driveways. The board hasn't debated this. The Plan Commission hasn't had a chance to talk about this, but the potential for having an off-road path in addition to the shared road shoulders is, iffy. It's something that we really have to look at. Now, given all of that, I'm going to bring up an entirely different subject, which is that eventually the village is going to need to run a water main up Riverwoods Road. Normally, we would have asked that the property re-subdivide or create a new subdivided lot, or we would have taken an easement as part of the plat. I think there was a mention in this earlier memo about retaining an easement for a bike path. My recommendation is that the village obtain an easement as part of this process for a future water main. And if we size the easement, running along Riverwoods Road, if we size the easement correctly, we can drill underneath the berm and the retaining wall. We can directionally bore a water main easement so we don't have to disturb it. At the same time, the village can retain the right in the easement to put in a bike path, but at that point, the village would have to decide at its cost to move the retaining wall and the berm. In other words, if the village felt that strongly that having an off-road path made sense, it would have the right to do it, but it would have to pay for it, because that's the original deal with orphans, was that they got to keep the wall, that was the term of it. So I guess the shift here is, I think we still need an easement, but I think the easement most likely is going to accommodate future underground boring for water main as a safety, as a backup plan. It would allow us to one day go in and move that berm if we had to somehow and put in a bike easement, a bike path. But given that the county's plan is to put in shared shoulders on both sides of the road, and given the difficulty with constructing a path, an off-road path, our recommendation is to have this easement, but leave the retaining wall where it is right now. That would make the most sense, because the likelihood is it's going to stay there for a long time. Steve, would you?
In full concurrence, and thank you for talking about the easement for the water line, because I was going to follow up if you didn't do that. So, but I know that you would handle that. So Chair Breykoff, you asked about leftovers from the last meeting. I think most of these things have been taken care of. I'm just going to zip through them real quick, but a lot of these things have been taken care of in discussion with the applicant and the revised drawings that have been shown here. Wetlands, we've not had an issue. Those were reviewed by the village's wetlands expert. They're okay with that. From the woodlands perspective, we did get the woodland tree and protection landscaping plan. The area that was impacted was just noted to be under the 20%. Which is good. We've discussed the grading along the west edge of the west parking lot. Still to be determined as to whether or not that's done by a sloped ground surface, or if there's some kind of retaining wall that's actually put in there. I don't think that really affects the project at all in terms of the Plan Commission's approval or denial. That's, I think, a detail that can just be worked out with the applicant at a later date. The revised staging plan has been submitted to us. I still question whether or not there's enough space there. But again, I think where we need to go is to put part of any recommendation would be to have the boundary fence, the construction fence, actually laid out with lath and surveyed to verify that we're within or underneath the 3.0 acres of disturbance. And, once that fence is up, that's all they get. They have to accomplish everything in between. And it's no different than the last project that we did something similar to. We talked about the some abatement wall. Attorney Hoover just went through that issue. We talked about before the stormwater detention needs. If we can accommodate getting this project to something less than 0.5, then staff would be supportive of it. Staff is not supportive of it at this point, being right at that threshold, because we just feel there's going to be some issues that will occur somewhere in the course of this project. We would like to see that number get down somewhere, maybe even as close as 0.45. And then we also looked at, we talked about special events last time. Special events, if those were limited to normal business hours is not an issue, but if these are going to occur in evening hours, then we'll have to treat that as far as our special events permits to deal with any kind of services that are needed from the village, whether it be police, fire, or otherwise. And then also noise and lighting would be an issue, but I think we can handle that with regard to special event permits at a later date. I don't believe, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, Village ecologist was still looking for an ecological mitigation plan. Has that been submitted to him? I'm going to take that as a no. That is an item that would need to be submitted for their final approval of the project. And then we talked about noise, and I think the noise issue is probably more so toward the neighbor to the immediate west. And I think the revisions to the drawings accommodate that by removing dogs from the area that are between the building and that house, as well as planting the trees and the solid fence that's there. The extension of the east or the west lobby, I believe, helps the issue going to the south. I'm still got some concern with regard to the reconfigured outdoor holding areas going from 8 to 11 dogs at that point. But other than that, those were the issues that were not directly addressed at the last meeting, but have since mostly been resolved.
Can I make a suggestion? Some of these issues are issues we're going to require as part of permit and site plan approval.
Correct.
What would be helpful is for us to have an agreement as to what are the zoning issues that we need to think of addressing as a condition if we were to vote tonight to recommend approval, so we can get out of here.
So the list of things.
Did I say that? I did say that. I did say that.
So the list of things that, if this project were not covered or were not subject to special use, the following items are things that are in conflict with the village's zoning code. Number one, the accessory structure immediately to the north of the building, which is located, it's a tiny plan.
Okay, but
located right there.
We can, in the special use, modify the setback. So I don't consider that a zoning issue either, because I know I can address it. What I'm concerned about is what is it that we would possibly say without this condition being satisfied, the special use would have an adverse impact on adjoining properties, and we would really not want to recommend approval. What are the necessary conditions as a zoning matter?
I think the number one issue is always noise.
Okay.
And I think that based on the drawings that I've seen, I think that they, in my opinion, have addressed those issues. Again, with the exception that this new concept of increasing the number of dogs that are on the south side of the building may or may not impact the noise level going across Riverwoods. The berm has been extended in front of the building in that area. Well, I don't know if it's really extended, but it's recreated from taking the other building down. We have that. And the other piece would be, in order to create the east parking lot, a portion of the berm on that end is going to be removed in order to create a more flat surface for the parking lot. So that, from a noise perspective, are really the two issues.
Bless you.
The impervious area, is that not something that we would need to address?
So if the recommendation is to approve granting a special use, provided that the project documents, their final documents, comply with all applicable village ordinances and regulations, that means that before the final approval is granted, maybe between now and the board meeting, there will be some further refinement to the plan. The board can take the recommendation and decide what to build into the ordinance if they can't do something. But I don't think they have to solve the problem for you to, they're close enough. They can take one parking space away. They may hate to do that, but they could do something if they had to, if that became necessary. And I'm not suggesting you have to.
No, that is correct. We've talked about it internally. There are things that can be done where we could tighten things up. And as Bill mentioned, we're conservative right now. So we could we can make that better.
The way I try and look at it is, what are conditions that if the project were built and it's too late, you couldn't do anything about? You want to sort of control for the things that are fundamental. And then we have lots of code review. We have lots of site plan review. We have lots of regulations anyone has to comply with, even if they get a recommendation for a special use. So this is about overall, does this new project sit in the neighborhood in a way that we all would be proud of, because it's been a magnificent member of the community for so long. They're resetting the table for the next 40 years or something. The things that we've always been concerned about would be effect on adjoining areas, noise, light. The reason we were asking about the waste is that I think the laws have changed a great deal in the last 30 or 40 years, and the village has become subject to something where every year we have to submit to the EPA that we're looking at how all the stormwater that leaves the village is not polluted, that we're controlling for illicit discharges and things like that. I don't know that the standards that we have today, I'm sure they weren't ever applied to orphans, 40 years ago, but today when we're examined by whatever relevant authority, we have to always be taking measures to look at where these sources of pollution are. So I think it is important. I take the point that you're reducing the amount of area from what it is today, but as a regulatory matter, we have to be cognizant of whether we're impacting streams and wetland areas with how the stormwater leaves the property. So that's an important consideration. The impervious surface is a regulatory matter. We're subject to the watershed development ordinance. We can't really waive that requirement. So whatever we do with the special use, you have to meet that requirement. So, we looked at the architecture, we looked at the traffic circulation. Our planner from Tesca here, Michael Blues, has been listening to all of this, and he hasn't raised any red flags with us. So I'm going to ask you if you have a red flag to raise.
I don't have red flags, but I think there were a few things that have been part of the testimony that was provided here and part of the materials that were provided that were read into the record at the last meeting that addressed items such as the total number of animals that would be on site at any given time, the way that events would be handled, hours of operation. I think those are the kinds of things that you might typically find as part of a special use that you might want to specify or incorporate from the previous testimony into the approval.
I'm a bit concerned about the landscape plan because it doesn't seem that it's been approved yet. Has Steve Zimmerman, our village ecologist, reviewed it? Is he about to review it? Where does that stand?
Steve has reviewed it. I do not have a written report from him, but he has not raised any issues for me at this point. I know he's been out to the site and he has looked at what Orphans intends to do. I don't have anything firmly in writing from him yet. I've been trying to reach him this week.
And can you explain why the rain garden was eliminated? I think that was a nice feature. It's a sustainability thing. You don't have a lot of sustainability things going on in this project. So I'm curious what happened there.
There were a lot of nice trees that would have had to come down, woodland to come down to create a rain garden. So.
Okay.
Just a couple of just general questions here. We may have visited on this before. Remind me, you plan to stay in operation during the construction?
Yes,
What's the overall construction timeline?
it's probably 18 to 20 months.
18 to 20 months. Okay, thank you. And then phase one, phase two construction timelines?
Each one of the first two phases are probably 8 months-ish, 8 to 10 months-ish. So the last phase would be the quickest. Knock down a building, make a site, that would be, a month or two.
Okay, last question, especially since we did hear from the neighbor next door. Have you all had a chance to chat with your neighbor?
I know Rick, our executive director, has had communication with him before, because this is the same neighbor we're talking about, who we have a good relationship with. Rick has talked with him before. With regard to this project, we just sent out the invitation to the formal letter that went out to everybody announcing these meetings, but we also had a meeting before that we had like an informal coffee that we invited people to Cafe de Oro. And he received a letter that had a handwritten from, I don't remember if it was me or Rick, saying that we hope you'll come out, where it was just to be an open question and answer if anybody had any questions or concerns. It also, part of the letter, I think, said that it was okay to just reach out to one of us directly. And nobody attended that meeting, but several of us were there, so we've made the effort. And to our understanding, it's a good relationship.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just had one quick thing, I think, is you talked about construction phasing in phase one, being in that parking lot. When you get to phase two, where's the construction phasing? Because there's now it's a much more cluttered site at that point in time.
Correct. No, I'm good. In phase two, the west parking lot will now be the main parking lot for staff, public that are entering the shelter on the newly constructed dog side. There's still going to be the cat building, the existing cat building, and we're going to have to basically have split gates. I wouldn't even say there's a gate on that side. We're going to have a split drive where construction traffic on that is going to be on one side and public is going to be on the other. That's the only tricky part about the phasing. But we've done similar projects like that before where we've had to use. And if you look at it, we're actually moving that driveway over. So we're going to keep just slightly. So we're going to keep the existing driveway as long as we can while we're building a construction entrance. So we'll have the width in order to get our equipment through. And then in phase three, then all functions are out of that west parking lot. Cat, dog, the whole entire building will be out of that. So then the old existing parking lot on the east will become our construction zone. We'll take down the building, take out the parking lot and put in the new parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? I think we have a motion to close the hearing. Do we have
Ready
do
to
a
close the
motion?
hearing? Are we ready to,
I,
do you have anything else you would like to say to us as part of your presentation?
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, nothing more? Anything more, Director Witt
Not at this time, no.
or Mr. Blue or Gewalt? Nope. All right, I think that we're ready.
Want a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved first.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is closed.
So where you are today, as you've had a public hearing, you've considered their application. The Plan Commission has two matters actually that were in the notice. One was of the proposed text amendment, which created a better and newer definition of animal shelter and terms and conditions for approving it in the R1 district. And I think you've probably already seen that at one of the earlier meetings where I wasn't here, but hasn't changed. The other matter before you is to recommend granting a special use for an animal shelter for this particular proposal in response to this application. Do you want to go back and just look at the text amendment for a moment? Would that?
You happen to recall which tab it is?
Tab.
You can probably find it.
I can read it to you. It's not that, I won't read all of it, but I can read some of it.
Okay,
Will that work?
yeah, that'd be fine. It's S,
It's S.
tab S as in
Okay.
Sam. Um, I think everybody has it. so-
Who's had it. So I mean, I can say a few things about it, or if you feel like you know it and understand it, I won't.
Why don't you tell us what the changes are?
Well, so we approved an animal shelter as a use in the, special use in the R1 district back in 1982 when King's Kennel came into the village. That was a boarding kennel, a dog kennel on Saunders Road, just south of Thorngate. At the time, back in those days, it was just added as a special use without much thought to it. Orphans came much earlier and was already a grandfathered use. Orphans was never technically a special use. That language that's in the R1 district wasn't designed for orphans. Orphans was here before the village existed, so it just was a grandfathered use. Because of the expansion and our desire to be able to approve this, but if you think about animal shelter as being a special use in the R1 district, you wouldn't really want it anywhere in the R1 district. I mean, it's, King's Kennel was all the way over on Saunders, but again, no one thought of that in 1982. So the idea was to reintroduce the term animal shelter as a special use, but then tie it together with some necessary approvals. So the text amendment says that as a special use, you can approve an animal shelter pursuant to the provisions of section 91116, and then we add provisions that require licensing, minimum parcel size, design considerations, supervision, a development plan, and a process for getting approved as a special use. So in a way, what we're really saying is the animal shelter that we once allowed for King's Kennel, that won't be in the code anymore. To be this kind of animal shelter, you need to go through this kind of process, and probably we don't expect another one to appear anytime soon in the R1 district. We have other districts where it would probably be more appropriate. So that's how we developed this text amendment. And in effect, they're going through the procedure that we anticipated in this text amendment. We did the same sort of thing with Centers for Enriched Living, for example. It's a type of special use. It's called a social service center in the R1 district, but pursuant to, and then there's another section that's tied to it just in the way this is, that says, in order to be a social service center, you have to have A, B, C, D, E, F. So we just sort of followed the same template. So if this meets with the approval of Plan Commission, then if you move to recommend approval of the text amendment to the board, then the Board of Trustees will have it before them in this form.
So it's motion.
You're looking for a motion to recommend approval of the text amendment as proposed.
Motion.
Second?
Is there any discussion, any questions by commissioners on the text amendment?
This is on your recommendation. You want to do a roll call vote?
Sure. Roll call vote, please, on the motion.
Commissioner Blaylock,
Aye.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Bizarre,
Aye.
Commissioner Graditor, Commissioner Rothbart, Commissioner Romanelli,
Aye.
Chairperson Brightclough.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the next matter before you is whether or not to recommend approval of the granting of a special use to Orphans of the Storm for an animal shelter on the site that they are pursuant to their proposed development plan with the following conditions.
There we go.
To keep it simple, one condition would be compliance with all applicable regulations and ordinances of the village, particularly with regard to compliance with the watershed development ordinance, compliance with the provisions for our NPDES permit, which is the National Pollution Environmental Discharge Permit, NPDES permit, which is one of our concerns. 3 would be granting of a easement, should be 15 feet in width off of the edge of the Lake County right-of-way as expanded for purposes of a water main and future bike path, with the understanding or condition that any necessary relocation or removal of the berm would not be the applicant's responsibility, but the village's responsibility. So it's an easement with the right to use the underground surface, and if we use the surface, then it would be the village's responsibility.
Attorney Hoover, would you clarify that to include the retaining wall as well? Or do you assume that that's just part of the
Sure,
berm?
and the right to retain the retaining wall. That the granting of the easement doesn't, that the orphans retains the right to maintain the retaining wall in its location.
But I guess I'm adding to that, relocation of the berm and or the retaining wall.
If the village had to relocate the berm, it would also relocate the retaining wall. Yes, thank you, Director Witt. I think that the conditions related to whether they're put boulders on the side there or not, that's really, that's an aspect of it.
I see that as an engineering solution
Okay.
that doesn't really need to get addressed.
I think the 4th condition might be incorporation in the operating hours. Michael, what were some of from the prior presentation?
From the previous meeting, there was testimony as to what the hours of operation would be. And I couldn't find them in my file.
I think the 4th condition would be that the operation is consistent with the narrative that they provided, which is part of the documentation.
And I think specifically, we didn't want to know about the hours of operation and the maximum number of cats and dogs that would be kept at any time. There was comment made about events being during normal business hours, and if not, would be done in consultation with the village. And I didn't know if there was anything related to the living quarters or 24-hour caretaker being on site, which I believe was also part of the previous testimony that you might want to identify as part of a condition.
But again, that's all included within.
That's all in the
floor plan.
previous materials.
So if it's,
As long as we're incorporating
if we're in compliance with the drawings, it's already in there.
in compliance with the drawings and the operating provisions of the presentation, the previous presentations. Okay. Does anyone else have other important conditions we maybe forgot?
Does some of what you said cover the woodland mitigation plan?
That's exactly what I was going to ask Sherry too. Yeah.
The 5th condition would be, well, we said compliance with all applicable village ordinances, which includes our woodland protection ordinance, so maybe we're covered.
Can we say in particular?
Of course we can.
Okay, good. In particular, the
Attorney Hoover,
approval. by the
one
Village of Colorado.
one suggestion that Mr. Blue is offering here as well too. We talked about numbers of cats and dogs and how that may increase. I would suggest that that's got to be a number discussed with the applicant before anything is set in stone within language. So if there's a way that we can determine what that would be,
Well,
if necessary.
we're advisory to the board. We're recommending approval with these conditions, which means the board can take these conditions and work with them, before the final ordinance. So if you think that we'll have better clarity on this before we get to a final ordinance.
I'm just thinking if we can get to a clear number that, if today, and I'm just throwing out a number as an example, if there's 87 dogs, would it be limited to 90 or 100 or whatever?
Well, I thought there had been a limit discussed in the earliest.
There are numbers that have been discussed as far as what they have planned, but how do we know what's happening in the next 10, 20 years and where they feel that whole facility may go?
Does the facility have an implicit limitation just by the size of the facility? Like this is how many dogs and cats can be there?
all depends on whether or not they're going to double up dogs and cats inside holding pens.
Okay,
And
so,
I don't know how that affects,
And
that,
my-
how that's affected by their internal policy.
And the reason I raised it was there've been a couple of different numbers related to hours and final number of dogs on a couple of the presentations. That's why Steve and I were talking about the idea of let's get a final number before we go on to the
Well,
board. But
maybe-
it be something that's been presented and that's confirmed by the applicant.
And the other aspect that we have to look at is previous discussion as far as how the county is going to be looking at discharge into sanitary sewer and how that number fluctuates versus what their charges are.
why don't we have as a fifth condition that the board consider imposing a limitation on, an absolute limitation on the number of dogs and cats,
Okay.
and then it'll be clearly called out.
I have one comment on our plans are indicating the amount of holding condos or kennels. So it would not be uncommon if like a mother and her pups came and they would put them in one kennel. Like you would not put pups separate from,
Right.
like, or brother and sister came. And this is not uncommon. This happens all across the Chicagoland where you get clusters of cats or
So,
dogs
let me
that we're
suggest-
sharing.
Let me suggest,
So it's a little tricky to say
I-
like there's 60 kennels, there's going to be 60
the
cats.
fact that we recommend that the board, that's why we use the language consider a limitation. So thank you for that. And when we write the limitation, we'll have to make exceptions for temporary situations where there are mother and pups. We'd have to build that into it, but we won't
That'd
just
be-
blindly put a number. Got it.
Okay.
Jerry, is there any possibility that you could reread?
Whoa.
If you could just sort of give us a brief overview of conditions 1 through 5. I think I kind of
I
remember them,
actually
but,
had 6.
okay, that's even better.
Okay, so 1 is compliance with all applicable regulations and ordinances. 2 was compliant with, and I didn't get the letters.
NPDES.
M what?
The NPDES, MPN like Nancy, PDES permit and applicable regulations for stormwater discharge.
Didn't you say watershed? Is it separate?
Well, that was, the earlier one was the water. I said it, number 1 was including the watershed development ordinance,
Okay.
Right,
but that's.
but
yes.
I just said
Number-
ordinances.
Number 2 was NPDES permit and related stormwater regulations.
And then number 3, it was something with 15 feet from,
And that the village be granted an easement 15 feet from the county highway as expanded for
Or
bike
water
path
main.
and water main, but with the understanding that if we construct the bike path, that it would be at village expense to relocate the berm and retaining wall.
I have that, okay. And then 4 was incorporation of hours of operation, which is consistent with the presentation. Okay,
Why don't we
and
say
then it talked,
incorporation of the operating procedures described in the earlier presentation and basically compliance with the narrative and all of the materials presented. I mean, it's basically, you're making the recommendation on the basis of the materials presented.
I actually had that as 5 as compliance with the drawings and operating conditions discussed at the previous meetings. That's what I had as number 5. Because within number 4, you talked about the berm, you talked about the hours of operation, you talked about the number of animals, but then, I mean, that was the first thing, and then for number 6,
think
you
4 and 5
talked
could
about the
probably
number
be-
of animals as well,
I think 4 and 5 could probably be combined.
okay?
Can we just phrase it more eloquently to be, compliance with the
Consistent
project
with the
materials as presented and as revised throughout our process?
The
Throughout our
applicant's
hearings.
material as presented at previous,
As-
at each of the hearings.
Say that again?
in compliance with the applicant's submittal material.
Yes,
As
Yeah.
presented at the public hearing.
As presented at the public hearing.
Into the
Right.
record, so it's in the minutes.
And another clarification, you, Attorney Hoover, were suggesting potentially a separate line for the right for orphans to retain the retaining wall as it currently is located. That I did not hear Jerry read that back.
Because I just summarized, but I do have something about the, understanding the berm and retaining wall may need to be relocated, and it would be the village's responsibility, and right to retain the retaining wall. I had that.
Okay, but what I think the ad was, is that orphans has the right to to keep and maintain that retaining, the existing retaining wall in its existing location,
unless we relocate.
unless we relocate, unless the village
I
deems it
think, I think you
necessary.
have it, I think you have it probably enough. I think you probably have it enough. We'll, as long as everyone has a sense of what we're recommending, and we're close, we're pretty close.
Are you okay?
Okay, and then number 6, I had, the board will consider imposing an absolute number of dogs and cats, noting that it is not uncommon, or noting that it is not uncommon to have a mother and puppies together, and that would be built into the numbers.
Another ad,
Okay.
signage at the west lot.
Oh, thank
yeah.
you.
Okay.
Because that wasn't in in their submittals.
And maybe a last question. Noise has always been an issue. It's been evidently handled very well by the retaining wall, but we are making modifications to it. We want to address the potential for the need to modify things in the event that we get complaints, or do we want to just handle it as a complaint-based thing somewhere later in life? Even if
Maybe
you,
just
even if you
never-
went to a
would
point
this
where
be
you
num-
asked the applicant to work with the village to resolve any noise complaint issues that may arise from the current design.
Maybe this for number, would this be number 8? 7, consider including provisions to address future noise complaints.
As they arise or something like that.
As they arise,
As they arise.
if and as they arise. And we'll have to think if there's something we should put in the special use. Maybe we'll put in some, language eventually that gives the board the right to ask them to, look into it and, but this is what we did the last time. This is how we got to the berm.
Are we missing anything? Anything else? No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve those conditions and the
Recommend the granting of a special use.
granting of a special use for this project.
So moved.
Voice vote?
I
A roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Bizarre,
Aye.
Commissioner Gratiter, Commissioner Romanelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Rothbard,
Aye.
Commissioner Blaylock,
Aye.
and Chairperson Brightclough.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome. So just a quick follow-up. So there's a few things they need to stitch up before the board meeting on the 10th?
Well, we'll need to put together a report from the plan commission. And we may, depending on what director wants to do, we may want to bring that report back here
For one last,
for one last.
because it just seems like there's a lot to do
Yeah.
in those 7 or 8 items we just ticked off.
Yeah.
So I think
And
the
that-
board meeting is the 10th, right?
But well, it's the next one is, we would never have
Talking
it
about
that
the
fast. We would probably give ourselves 30 days to get ready anyway, but
August 19th. Isn't it?
No, it'll
there's
go-
one on September
it'll go to
2nd.
September.
September,
Just think it's at Labor Day week.
It would be tight because we would have to get all of this material together and in their packet and give them time to look at it all. And so,
Plus, we have another commission meeting in between there that we're working on.
so we might have to, like get some of the information to the board and then really ask them to be ready to, vote in the September meeting. I'm just imagining, just based on the,
The preparation, like, as far as us addressing noise concerns, we've always would, and like any other resident, like if your neighbor was out.
right.
expect they should do it.
It's what happens is a trustee may have some language that they want to suggest in the ordinance. So I can suggest all of these concerns. The plan commission will have this report, but then when I have to write the ordinance is going to have conditions that are going to be a little more carefully worded than this. And at that point, I can't do that on the fly in a board meeting. So when we mention to the board what the concerns are, and they look at some draft language, they may say, well, I like this better, or could you do this? You may say, well, you're being crazy. You need to say something else here. And then so it may need to come back for a second go around. It's just very hard to do this all in an open meeting.
So should we proactively then address each of those?
I think we should probably get together on writing the plan commission report. And as we uncover some of these issues, yeah, I think we should.
Or would it make sense then for you, as you prepare that, to maybe reach out to me and on maybe operational things, and reach out to Chris or Mike or Ken? But it sounded like it's mostly operational.
As we're preparing that report with Chair Brightcoff, we will be reaching out just to make sure that, we can write this thing once, and it's probably prudent to go over what that report is going to be saying, not that, anything that we discuss afterwards really changes the context of it. It's just that everybody is aware of what's being moved forward to the village board. So
then I should just wait, wait to hear from one of you beforehand.
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to start doing that next week.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll keep in touch with you.
Your thoughtfulness that went into all of these hearings. I know it's a lot of detail. I appreciate everybody's support of. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving along with our agenda. We do not have any new business. That was old business. Staff report, Director Witt.
I have nothing to report for tonight.
Okay.
I think this was enough on the plate.
This is plenty. I have no comments, and so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night. Yes, our next, when is Labor Day? I assume we'll still have it on the 4th. Yeah, I assume, yeah. Sorry.